Hello friends, today's video I'm going to talk about a topic related to life, love and addictions, and also maybe a little bit about homelessness. Now, if people have found videos recently regarding twin flame relationships or soulmate relationships, they might have found such videos because I believe that the universe and God is maybe trying to wake them up towards something related to their life purpose. Other thing that is normally very common in most of us is when we are in our teenage years or in our 20s and 30s, many of us are searching for a good love life. Now, why are we searching for this, and why is majority of Earth so lonely or depressed or anxious? All these illnesses, according to the insights I have received in the last few years, I believe stems from basic core problem in all our lives, which is that humanity has forgotten what it means to survive, thrive, and live a good quality life on earth. Most of us, if they are people my age, I'm in my early 40s, all of us have been raised either by TV because our parents were absent in our lives. If not by TV, we might have had brief social interactions during festivals with our families or during some social occasion like birthdays with our families or marriages, or even sometimes deaths can be a place where people meet and greet their families and friends or even co-workers in societies like India and also in societies like US. These are the two main countries where I have lived in, and hence I understand the culture of these two places a little bit better than I would have if I had lived in other countries, right? So, or if I didn't live in these countries, my understanding would have been much less. I hope it makes sense. Sorry, I got a little jumbled up here. But basically, what I'm trying to elicit here is that in India or even in US, I led a life which was very much isolation based. And in recent years, it didn't bother me when I was studying as a student or growing up as a kid, because I did have a good friendship circle. And otherwise, if I didn't have a friendship circle, being a child, it is very easy to be entertained if you're watching TV or if you're reading a book or if you're spending some time on your hobbies. But it becomes a social problem when you are an adult, and especially if you're an adult who understands what is the purpose of living a good life. And this is where I kept hitting stumbling roadblocks with the people I dated when I was living in US. So my first 22 years of my life I lived in India, studied in India. Then I went for higher studies in US, lived there, worked there, studied there, at two different time points, at the beginning of my stay there as well as at the end of my stay there. So I had a studying experience not just as a early 20-year-old, but as well as in my mid 30s I had a second phase of studying experience. Now, while learning, while studying, while working, I didn't feel so much of my loneliness because I would keep myself preoccupied with work or studies or reading books or watching movies. So my addictions in my life involved around reading a lot of books, reading a lot of watching a lot of TV shows in my 30s and 20s and 30s, uh, or sometimes dating people to see if I can end up having a good family life with them, which didn't materialize because those men were, or boys, were involved in a kind of addiction that they don't understand is an addiction. And that's why I'm making this video, because though most of us want love in our lives, most of us don't pursue love, don't give importance to love, don't give importance to having and building a meaningful life connection with someone else in our life. And most of us, until we hit our late 30s or mid lives, we can keep ourselves busy and engaged and enrolled in different things. We can become really literally addicted to strong addictive drugs, which has happened in US. Because and I worked as a pharmacist in US, that's why I observed this more in US, that people who live in US are independent, are very capable of having a life where they can just continue their life, having a busy professional life and nothing else. But what it leads to in people in US, and especially what I observed, maybe because it was my life purpose, it came more in the forefront for me. I observed that people were extremely lonely, hence many of my patients had anxiety or depression, and or depression actually I should say, and they had sleeping problems, or they had also addictions. So many people were addicted to prescription drugs in the place where I worked and in the city where I worked. And over the years of my work in that country, that is the statistics that came up, that over the decades of my life in US, people have gotten more and more addicted to prescription medications. And the reason why people get addicted to prescription drugs is because people think it is a safe thing because a doctor is prescribing it. But unfortunately, even though a doctor might be prescribing a medication to someone, prescription drugs are as harmful and addictive and life threatening and life harming as if you had addiction to alcohol or any other illegal drugs. So, be it a legal drug addiction, be it an illegal drug addiction, be it a food addiction, which I had addiction to food, or addiction to TV and books, or addiction to having adrenaline rush like activities that many boys tend to engage in when they are teenagers, and from teenage years to 30s or 40s, men try to engage in adrenaline rush related activities. That is what is very prominent and predominantly what I observed in people both in India and in US. And another thing that I observed, which is very common in India and especially in the Indian movies, is the addiction to love that they portray in Indian movies and Indian TV shows, which initially I didn't find as a problem, because when you are in your 20s and 30s, we want to be that deeply immersed in love, right? Which is not a problem until and unless it becomes like a stalker like love. That's when love turns toxic. Love can't function because love doesn't get the freedom to function, right? So our Indian movies portray that kind of toxic love, according to me, or even Indian TV shows, which is not realistic. And the reason why that has also come up in Indian movies and Indian shows is because of the basic core loneliness that everyone is going through in their life currently on earth. Everyone who's of our generation, maybe even 10-20 years older than me or 10-20 years younger than me, is going through this questioning phase regarding love. We see something about love, or we see something missing in love in our life, which leads to us trying to wish for the opposite to manifest in our life. So, for example, let me give you an insight about my life. In my life, my mother died when I was in my 20s. As a result, I have lived half of my life, more than half my life, without a motherly figure. And even before she died, she was a very detached mother. She was a very dutiful mother. She provided good food. She provided a clean home. But she was a very non-socially interactive mother. So as a result, any kind of social interaction, and my father was also, he was very socially interactive, but in the home life he is completely uninvolved. So I grew up having a very disengaged childhood, where I was just growing up on my own without people actually being meaningfully deeply involved in my life. It isn't that I didn't have deep meaningful connections, but the connections that were deep and meaningful to me were not meaningful to other people in my life, because my parents had their own problem zones and own problem issues. As a result, they had a very dysfunctional relationship. And while I found wanted to find deeper relationships, I was very deeply attached to many of my friends. I was very deeply emotionally attached to all of my family that I used to visit regularly in Kolkata, because my parents came from Kolkata and we grew up in Mumbai. During summer vacation time or any other vacation time, I've always been very deeply involved uh, in loving my emotionally, not like outwardly showing it, but emotionally I have always felt a deep connection to many people. But the thing is, this is where life teaches many people different lessons depending on what lessons you've come here to learn. And for me, I realized that they were not as deeply engaged and involved in our lives, because we lived outside of India, which is one problem that happens to anyone who lives, sorry I said outside India, but at that time when I was growing up, I was living outside West Bengal. So though my parental family was from West Bengal, and we would go and meaningfully have a joyful vacation time with them of a few weeks or a few or sometimes even a month, staying around with them, even though the deep love that we felt when we visited them was present, it was not the kind of deep love you can hold with anyone when you want to have a long life with them, and which is how everyone's family life is structured. Or technically, this is how God has designed all of our lives to be structured. Majority of us should have a life where we should have deep, meaningful, soulful bonds with our parents, with our children, with our spouses, and then a secondary layer of deep meaningful relationships are formed with our cousins, with our grandparents, with our others, second cousins and siblings, then second, third cousins, whoever you meet as part of your family, and your social circle that you meet as a part of your friendship group, work colleagues, school friendships, college friendships, things like that. And then if someone is even more motivated to build a very strong universal connection, then those people go into, like, say, media or politics or doing something socially, so that they become socially involved in social activities, voluntary activities, and things like that. So because I didn't have a deep meaningful home life, I always sought it out outside my home life, because I knew, I gave up on my parents long time back, that I knew, like, since my teenage years, that I can't have a deep meaningful soul bond with them. Now in recent years, universe tells me maybe I was not even biologically their child. Now whether the what information I got from the universe is true or false, I don't know. And it's very difficult, being from an Indian family and a very conservative culture of Indian family, to speak openly about these topics that I'm speaking openly on social media about. It's more easier for me to speak about my problems socially on social media than communicate it with my parents at home, because conservative cultures like Indian culture also have this barrier of communication of parent and child that can come up in many conservative cultures, where people can't openly ask also, like, hey, universe is telling me I might be adopted, am I adopted? I can't openly ask that about my parents. In fact, in my family I can't even openly speak one or two sentences without having some form of retaliation of what I have spoken. So as a result, I have a very crappy personal life, which has consistently led me to be depressed, since my teenage years, because in teenage years you start to form the social bonds with other human beings, start to think about love a little bit more deeply, especially if you're a woman. You are not just women, any one of us who's in years, realizing that we don't have a deep meaningful bond with our parents or friends or other social circle, we can start questioning about love, or wanting to know what does love entail in our lives, right? So that is what happened to me. And that's when we also start reading storybooks related to love. We start watching movies, romantic movies. We want to be immersed in those romantic movie phases and romantic books. Especially women do that more. Women in their since teenage years, because women are supposed to mature a little bit sooner than men. Girls start to think about love a little bit more strongly, I feel, when they are in their teens. Whereas teens and early 20s. But what is happening to boys at that time? Because they are designed to first examine love in the physical form, they start examining it in the form of porn and kinds of dirty literature. But herein lies the problem. If women start obsessing about love in an unrealistic manner, wanting a deeper emotional bond with men when they haven't developed it in their 20s, while men want a deep sexual relationship which women haven't developed in their 20s, which results in many of us having really crappy teen romances, or very crappy 20s filled with heartbreaks, right? And most of us in our generation, or even 10-20 years older to us or younger to us, in the last 50 to 100 years of earthly existence, anyone who has ever wanted to be in love or had tried to pursue love by dating someone has faced this issue of heartbreak in some point of time or other. Or even if you ended up marrying someone whom you dated in your 20s and ended up marrying them long term, you can still have heartbreak in your 20s, late 20s, or early 30s, or early 40s, or in your midlife, when you realize that the person that you've married is not in the same frame of mind, same spiritual level, or same heart level as you. Because when we are young, we don't know ourselves as deeply as when we slowly start to understand ourselves and our deeper life purposes when we hit our 30s or 40s. As a result, also, many people, which I have seen in Indian movies and Indian shows, they show a lot of, or even in foreign soap operas, people show so much adultery happening in their 30s, 40s, 50s. Now, why does this happen? Again, because people feel disconnected with whom they are married to. People don't understand how to build a better, stronger relationship with whom they are married to. And as a result, their relationships can start breaking down. That's why both in US and in India, relationships are breaking down, but in different ways. US being a more liberal culture, if a marriage breaks down, people are more prone to divorce eventually, or undergo a phase of separation to decide whether they should reconcile, and then they go through divorce. Whereas in India, while officially divorce numbers may not be as high as US, there are many relationships that are broken up in such a manner that people just have broken down lives. They don't have happiness in their lives after their 40s or 50s. They might just continue on with an unhappy marriage, thinking that they have no out from that marriage because of our conservative culture. And some people might even get separated from their spouses but still don't undergo a divorce because of the same thing related to societal shame, conservative culture related things. Sometimes people have kids and they don't want to break down a marriage in front of the kid, so they might just end up living separate lives for a few decades, and then after the kids have grown up, only then some couples end up getting a divorce, or some couples end up thinking they will just continue like this because they don't see a out or understand how to create that bond that is broken with their spouses. Now, this is where I got insights from God or and the universe based on my own loneliness, own examination of what I wanted in a relationship. And if that is not present for me in a relationship, that's why in the past, anytime I have felt the deep, meaningful connection at the physical, mental, emotional, social level that I would want from a spouse is absent from a person I dated, and I got married also briefly and got divorced. In all those relationships that I pursued in the past, if that deep level of physical, mental, emotional, social connectivity and life path connectivity was not present with someone, I was very clear that I didn't want that relationship to continue further. Which is the problem zone, of course, that when I don't want to build a relationship with someone and I'm more prone to wanting to break the relationship down. But why do I want that more than building? Because I led such a lonely life before I even met any of these people I dated in my 20s, that the 10-20 years of loneliness while growing up was enough for me to become very subtly and empathetically aware about where love is present and where love is absent. And it doesn't mean in relationships love will sometimes get absent, in the sense we might forget that we are in love with this person, and we might become very selfish when we are dating someone or when we are married to someone. After 10-20 years of marriage also, sometimes the selfishness starts creeping in because we stop forgiving the other person, we stop understanding the other person, we stop seeking the deeper connection building criteria with the other person. Now, for me, when I would see the people I dated not put in the same level of effort that I need from someone to have a good emotional bond with them, that's when I would things would just somehow start breaking down and fracturing in our communication, or not just fracturing, sometimes anger would come up between us, either from my side or from their side or from both sides. If not anger, if that person was of a cooler personality type who doesn't show anger, then their breaking down mechanisms would be passive aggressive, where their mechanism to break down a relationship would be to instigate a partner to break it down, right? By behaving in ways where the partner's needs won't be met, or by becoming ungenerous in relationships, or trying to become someone who is like not giving into the relationship as they should. As a result, relationships break down and people become unhappy and people become selfish, and which is all that results in relationships from not continuing either in a good quality manner or breaking down completely, such that people get separated from their exes or they get divorced if they are in a marriage. So, and in all this, what else plays a role? In all this, the other things that play a role is, say you're having a difficult time with your partner. Now, if your partner has a good social life with friends, or they have a good social life with their family and friends, what the partner will do, instead of making it work with you, they go and distract themselves with their friends, they go and distract themselves with their family. If your partner doesn't have a good social life with their friends and family, or friends or family, and are loner types, and are types who are very good at just being an introvert, then those partners, if they are angry with you, or if they are not willing to work on a relationship with you, what they would do passive aggressively is they would just involve themselves in their work life and become workaholics, or they could become addicts and get into addictions. They could have porn addictions, they could have drug addictions, they could have food addictions, they could have sex addictions, and you just wouldn't know whether they are having a sexual relationship or they are just watching porn and feeding their sex addiction that way. So like that, people start getting into addictions And those who are not addiction prone, they might start getting hyper anxious, they might start getting depressed, they might have sleep issues, they might have mood disorders. Why? Basically because they are not having the right kind of relationship that they wish to manifest in their life, but they are not honest enough to either say to their partner that this isn't the relationship I want, or they could be communicating with their partner in subtle ways that this is not how I want the relationship, or if not subtle ways, they might have been shouting to their partner that this is not how I want the relationship. But there's such a communication barrier and gap that even if you subtly communicate, even if you overtly communicate to a partner, if that partner's frequency doesn't match yours, how much ever you communicate, how much ever good you are at communication with them, if your love languages are not similar, if your communication languages are not similar, it will break down and things will manifest in an uglier manner than a more beautiful manner. For some, it will be really ugly if both people are mad at each other. For some, if one is more angry than the other, it will manifest a little bit more mellowed way. And if both people are equally mellowed, their relationship will break down easily without having too much verbal distress or conflict. But emotional distress and conflict of a relationship breaking down always shows up in our life eventually after the breakdown has happened in some way or the other, which is when also if you've broken up also, that's why so many of us love after we have broken down or broken up with a partner or got divorced, we love watching all these romantic comedies or sad romantic movies or movies that resonate and or books and stories that resonate and bring up that sad emotions in us. Why? Because we need to grieve the breakdown of a relationship that could have been and that didn't go the way it could have gone, right? And those who grew up in families where parents were very detached, parents didn't show a good emotional love language, those who don't have parents to fall back on, those whose parents are emotionally not so available to express grief in the right way, those are the people who are more prone to going into addiction related behavior, either work addiction, sex addiction, food addiction, etc. So what is actually missing? What is actually missing is the right partnership, the right direction with the partner that we have chosen, the right ways to communicate with the partner so that we can keep communicating in the language that the partner understands and the partner keeps communicating in the language that we understand. Now, if this mutual codependency and mutual understanding, mutual ability to work in a relationship is absent, no matter how much ever we try to make and build a relationship with someone, it won't happen. Because if you don't understand each other, you may say ABC, they will hear DEF. Then how are you on the same page? How can you go ahead in the same, build in the same way? ABC and DEF are close together, but even then, if they are, and they are all English language alphabets, but even then, if you said ABC and they don't even hear AB, because even if a partner hears AB, then also you might be okay with them. But if they completely don't hear ABC, if they hear only A and don't hear the rest, then it's a problem zone, because majority of your needs then haven't been heard itself by your partner. Then the next stage is, you may have said ABC, they heard ABC, but how you interpret ABC and how they interpret ABC might be different. And it might be that you prioritize AB while they prioritize BC, and that's when some conflict zones also occur. But at least if your partner has heard the same words that you have expressed, and if the partner also understands it in the same emotional level as how you have expressed it, then again conflicts can be resolved easily. That's why people always say communication is key in relationships. But it's not just that you should know how to communicate, they should also know how to process what you are communicating, And after processing, after hearing what has been communicated, what is done next is also something that both partners have to resolve jointly, which is where also many relationships fail. People don't understand how to jointly resolve a problem zone, even if they understand this is our problem zone. And then the third thing is people get distracted very easily in our modern lives by their friends, work, colleagues, to and get so much distracted, or they start taking for granted after they say they might have dated someone for 2 3 years. They decide that, oh, I have this person in the bag, so I don't need to work on it anymore. I'll work on my profession, or I'll work on something else. But people don't understand, like, how in work every 2 3 years you have to keep upgrading yourself, keep learning new things, keep striving for that promotion, or keep striving for some good group project to keep you excited in your work life, or go and change companies to do something meaningful in your work life. Same thing, if you want a good quality love relationship to develop in your personal life, you have to keep building it. And work life is meant to sustain your personal life, not the other way around. That's why people are usually technically supposed to have only 8-hour work lives. The rest 16 hours, out of those 16 hours, at least 10 12 hours should be in the presence of the people who are your loved ones. And out of those 10 12 hours, 6 to 8 hours, people might be sleeping, but the rest 5 6 hours that are still remaining in the day should be devoted to your family in some way, either family or social circle and family. But most people have forgotten that, and that's why most people have forgotten how to meaningfully coexist on earth. And it is not our problem, because we learn this, some of it from our parents, we learn some of it from our friends, we learn some of it from our media. But if you have started becoming heavily depressed, heavily anxious, heavily broken down, heavily grief stricken, heavily disrespected by your partner, you hold anger towards your ex partners or hatred towards your ex partners for having taken advantage of you, all these are or got addicted to something after you broke down or separated from your partner, these are all your soul trying to stir you into figuring out what is it that you want in your relationships with someone. If it didn't work out with the ex person, why didn't it work out with your ex? If you find out what are the places where it didn't work out from your ex's side, that is excellent. But that is only part of the job. Every time a relationship breaks down, it is both the ex and ourselves who were at fault in some ways, who lacked some communication skills, who lacked some empathetic skills, who lacked some selfishness or love and care based skills, and who were more selfish or self involved than able to see how to work fluidly with someone else. Now, that's why after we break down or break up with someone, most times we are very easily able to look at the other person's things that cause the relationship to break down. But eventually, after a few years of that breakdown or a few months of the breakdown, if you really want to become excellent in having a better future relationship, it's really important that we also look at our own flaws, look at the places where we are not able to come up and do something for another that the another might expect from us, and then decide, is this a changeable trait or is it unchangeable? Like, say for example, my when I got married, my husband's family was ultra conservative. They do not like opinionated women, opinionated girls having any say in front of their in-laws. Now, I am not brought up like that. I say a lot of things very easily to my family, which can seem disrespectful if outsiders hear it. And while yes, I can change the language in which I speak, I can tone down my anger, I can work on my anger, but I can't work on being an opinionated person, because that is my inherent core nature. So the things that are changeable within us, like anger, being more polite, being more respectful to elders, we can do. But if their respect is if their respect is expecting a girl who might exist in India or might exist in Indian culture, but the kind of personality type that isn't me, I can't work with it, right? Or say I want to build a loving home life with a partner, and my partner, and I want a partner who gives 50% efforts to that home life like I do, and 50% efforts to the outside home life like I do. I want that kind of partnership, which is very rare in Indian marriages. But as a result, any Indian boy I have dated, it didn't work out with them, because they were always more interested either in their work relationships, like they want to devote 80% of their time to work relationships and only 10-20% to the home life. There was another person who was okay devoting some time to home life, but he still needs more social interactions than home life interactions, right? They were all young, that's why they were like that. Maybe when they are in their 40s or 50s, they would have changed. But for me, who doesn't have a active home life at all, with parents and even with cousins and siblings, it's a very superficial life. For me, it was very important to have a equal partnership related home life with a partner who is willing to give that. And if I can't find that partnership, I know I will get frustrated and mad and angry and disappointed and depressed in those relationships, and which is what happened. I got either suicidal, or I got angry, or I got sick, also physically sick with some people, because I was getting physically sick because their level of social interaction was not matching mine. Like, they want more social relationship. For them, a fun relationship would be someone who is outgoing and goes and interacts with friends more and has a little less family life oriented approach. So again, if you don't have the right partnership, you will end up feeling frustrated, angry, depressed, anxious, or some mental health issue will crop up. Or when life's challenges will crop up, automatically that relationship will break down, because when you're handling life's challenges and you don't have a supportive partner with you, they first of all, they won't understand if you're having a challenge. That can happen. Sometimes they might understand you're having a challenge, but they don't have the maturity to deal with your problems when you are dealing with a problem. Like, say you are a very nice person when you don't have any problems in your life, but are any of us existing in a world where we can't have problems in our life? We can have work problems, we can have health problems, we can have education related problems. I was living in US, I had visa related problems, I had salary related problems, I had no emotional support system related problems. Now in all these fronts, I have to build some social relationships with friends as well. So if I have a partner who doesn't give me time to go and do my social relationship building thing, then also it's a problem, because I had a partner like that, and that's why I was getting depressed and suffocated. Or if I have everything in place where the partner is really good most times, but any time I'm having periods or having mental health breakdown or having physical health breakdown, if I don't have a partner who can understand at least that I have a health problem going on right now, keep away from me. Or I need a nurturing partner, because I don't have a nurturing mom in my life, I don't have nurturing siblings or aunts or other people in my life, I need that nurture from a partner. So if I don't get that from a partner, and which most men, having been raised by too much nurturing women, sometimes don't understand how to give back that nurture to a woman who doesn't have that in her life. So I am the kind of girl who has a lot of problem zones and red flags for many men, and I'm okay with that, because I know, like, I know how to nurture myself, I know how to nurture another, but I also know the third element that is needed is I need a partner who knows how to nurture me. Now this thing, modern men very rarely understand how to nurture their partner, especially when they're going through their periods, or they are having some emotional health issues, or they are having some, say, family emergency when their parents might have died, siblings might be sick, or they personally might be having a physical health issue in their 40s or 50s that are cropping up, like menopause or other, or cancer or anything else that crops up in their life. And that is the time when, in their 40s and 50s and 60s, is when women really need the men in their life to step up for them, to take care of them, be it their children, be it their partners, be it their siblings. That is when they need some caretaking and nurturing. But many women have existed in the modern lifestyle, leading lives where they are the caretaker and nurturer as well as the breadwinner for the family, but in turn they are not getting that nurture and support from their family. And while men have wanted to have wives who earns the bread, who takes care of the financial burden of the family, takes care of the buying and purchases of their family and other things related to family life, most men have not joined in into the caretaking and nurturing of the kids. Very few rare men are there in the world who have taken, if they have a spouse who earns the same income as them or a little less income as them, the spouse should only be taking a little more of the home life responsibilities. But instead of that, most of the time women have 80-90% of the home care activities and nurturing and caretaking related activities are their burden, which shouldn't be their burden in modern lives. If the woman is earning equally as the man, if the woman has equal social life as the man, if the woman has equally responsible work life as the man. So these are the reasons why in modern marriages sometimes marriages are failing. Those men and women who have a conservative marriage, I'll post on them a little later in a different video. But this is the marriage of modern lives, where because of expenses, because of education of women, because of the fact that women have to take a lead in certain job sectors now in the next phase of human evolution, men have to take up the roles related to home life. And it's not that such caretaking, empathetic men aren't born. Such caretaking, empathetic men are born in life, but being the rare ones, when they merge with the normal men who are more ultra conservative, who are more the macho and like masculine energy oriented men, these feminine or energy oriented men sometimes find it a little hard to gel with the masculine energy oriented men. But that too is a blessing for those men who are the different type, because they need to understand that if they have a more softer feminine side, that more nurturing energy inside of them, they are basically the pioneer men of the next generation women and children, because they are the men who have to now step up and take the role of the nurturer and caretaker of the family life. They have to take more of the role than the women are taking. Because say if there's a spouse where the spouse has more active work life, or spouse is earning more money than the husband, or the wife is more successful than the man, or even slightly more successful than the man, then the man has to be slightly more involved in the family life, involved in all the women based activities that have been traditionally found to be a woman's role. Likewise, with even same sex relationships, you have to understand what balance is needed in your relationship to make it a functional relationship. But more than functional, it has to be a nurturing, caring, love filled, balancing and harmonious relationship for each other. And if you're not able to do that for each other, if even with counseling it is difficult to do that for each other, then you do have to sit down and think, is it time to break down that relationship? Is it time to figure out new ways to build up that which isn't working anymore. I hope this helps, and if you have any questions and comments, please post below. Thank you.